The upper right-hand side, our red Terran player from Team Liquid. This is Clem. You know, for me in this series, I think a lot of it comes down to how much does Trap want to switch up the builds, because I think it can be very difficult for Clem to kind of have to alternate between playing against Blink and then playing against Stargate. It's going to really be kind of cool to see how much Trap does vary that up, because Trap for a long time was oh, I'm really going to just go like Blink after Blink after Blink. But I don't think you can really do that against someone as good as Clem, because the advantage of switching it up really is just so huge to give up on.
Yeah, I completely agree. These players have to be unpredictable. If they are predictable, then their opponents are going to be cutting every corner that they can against them, and that's just not a thing that you can afford. And all of these players, I think, give each other enough credit to not do that anymore. And it's a thing that we've seen in the evolution of StarCraft, right? Like, we used to see players like Serral kind of play very similarly game to game. Even Big Gabe was a player that was doing that. But all of these players are evolving to where they are mixing it up, and Trap is definitely not the exception, especially as of last year. He has really turned up. I mean, Trap, for me, Wardy, historically, he's always been there, but he was always in the shadow of someone like Rain or Classic or Cest or Stats, and now he is, in my eyes, top dog. He has overperformed all of them, especially in these global events.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Trap was in like every single finals that I think back to, right? It was just, it was always Trap. When every other Korean kind of, couldn't play through the night or whatever else, Trap was still there in the finals, right? He was still showing up, and he was just consistent. And that's what's really hit me about Trap, right? He's consistently good, and in everything he plays as well. He's not just good in the bigger events. Even when he plays, say, like a smaller online event, whether that's an ESL Open Cup or another one of the community events for a smaller prize pool, he is still showing up, and he's still winning those tournaments, right? Whereas players like Rogue show up to those events, and the inconsistency is very real, is very apparent. But that's not Trap at all, and to me, that just really shows how confident Trap is in his game, to show up day after day and just to put out games like that at that kind of level. I mean, that's extremely difficult to do with that being pretty much the best in the world. So, yeah, I'm down with you. I think Trap really has eclipsed some of the other Protoss players this last year or so.
Yeah, and he's gonna start with a DT opening. Of course, this is not, if you play DTs on the ladder and you're dying to DTs on the ladder, you're there with me where I'm like, oh my god, I didn't make a turret or I didn't save scans. But usually DTs are not this cheesy opening that we used to think back to in Wings of Liberty or something like that, where if the Dark Templar player doesn't do damage with them, they're pretty much dead. DTs are a pretty strong macro opening these days, aren't they, Wardy?
Yeah, no, it's really kind of fun to see how that develops. Not so much if you're playing the game. I'm not a big fan of DTs walking in my face, but it is fun to watch because it gives the Protoss another viable opening, right? On top of the Stargate, on top of the Blink, the DT Shrine is another way to mix it up. And I love opening up with, the series with this too. And even better for Trap that he faces the 3-racks here, because now there's not that Raven, right? The Raven is the go-to. I have it a lot of the time. I can shut down DTs easily. There's not even the option to start building a Raven. There's no factory, there's no starport. So Clem starts up an engineering bay, and that's it, right? That's pretty much all he's going to have. He's going to be moving onto the maps. He's going to miss the Prism. The Prism actually will see the move out as well, so Trap is aware of what's going on. I feel like this can only be disastrous for Clem, because even with the scans saved up, he doesn't have that many units to actually shut the DTs down with.
Yeah, this is going to be very troublesome. At the same time, he is already more than halfway across the map, so Clem has to stem forward, I think, on the other end and try to make something happen, try to create some chaos whilst defending here. Both players are going to be tested, but with Trap warping in 1 DT, anticipating that this was the case, also walling off. Like you said, he already had the information. It's going to be very difficult for Clem, and Clem actually using his scan offensively in order to break through, and is going to try to defend by making those turrets, but the natural is exposed.
Yeah, Trap did a really smart thing. He added multiple extra pylons to the front, so he would make sure that these structures remain powered. He gave Clem no real option of anything good to do at the front, because he basically makes Clem come into the natural mineral line, and that's fine. Trap can lose 11 pros because he's killed 20 SCVs, and DTs are still annoying on this other side. He can obviously even warp in another one with the Prism. Immortal finally pops out, and that was all just because Trap saw this attack coming while Clem did not. While Clem could react to DTs, which he did, Trap had his reaction prepared in advance, and that made a big difference. He saves this DT as well. That's another scan down the drain, and every scan you drop right now while 16 workers behind, needless to say, that's kind of expensive.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a third command center on the way, a third orbital potential or anything like that. He doesn't have the availability for a Raven. There is now a starport starting, but Clem is in a very, very difficult position. I mean, he has 3 barracks to produce bio from, but what can he do with that? I mean, he has to save scans if he wants to cross the map, and he doesn't even have scans enough to defend his natural base right now.
And there's just DTs everywhere, Clem. I was going to say, there's not very often that Clem stays in a game like this because Clem is a bit of an emotional player. And I think at some point when you've got DTs in each of your bases and your Marines are running around silly, there's just a moment where you're like, God damn it, I am done. Let's go to game number 2. And I mean, he was right to type out, right? He's losing more SCVs on top of what was already a rough opener. Trap just shows up and DTs work out very well for him. You could argue that this was unfortunate for Clem, but he also lost his Reaper in attempting to scout without picking up the info of whether it was going to be DTs instead of Blink. And that's the sort of information you're missing, plus the, kind of the risk of going 3 racks, right? Which is, it's funny because it's like, yeah, it gives you a lot of bio, but missing out on the Raven is such a key part, and it's the downfall of many DT openers, or the one thing that stops the DTs getting out of control. Without it, you see what the DTs can do. You just keep warping them in, you kill more SCVs, and Clem continues to fall apart in that scenario.
Yeah, and that's where the information game that we're not necessarily privy to comes into play, right? How much has Trap done before the Series 2 prepare for Clem to anticipate whether there would be Raven opening or the likelihood of it? Do you think they're very common? Is it something that you see Clem do a lot? Or
I think if it's just a 1-1-1 opening and you see that it's Twilight focus, you just go Raven most of the time, right? Because the Raven has so many uses later in the game. Because even if you go like Fast Colossus, the Raven's good for Interference Matrix. Even if, he just takes a quick third and goes Mass Gateway units, having an anti-armor missile can be great. And then if it is DTs, the Raven's obviously fantastic too. So unless you're going up against a Stargate, if you open 1-1-1, typically a Raven will be added in at some point unless you're doing like a really dedicated, like I'm going to build medevacs and tanks and push sort of thing. So yeah, I think Trap really found himself in a very fortunate build order scenario with it being against 3 racks. Just means that Clem has no option to go into that at all.
Yeah, an unfortunate game 1 for him. We'll see if he can reel it back in for the second game, as it is going to be on Lightshade, a closer rush distance map. I'm not sure if that opens up things for Clem or if Trap is going to get the option to maybe harass a CC on the low ground with Adepts or something of the sorts.
Yeah, the super early game obviously favors the Protoss in that regard. Adept, any unit early across the map can be very frustrating to deal with, but if you can hold that, which of course Terrans have so much experience with now, once you hold that, obviously, then this map does become tank push territory, and that's where Clem will definitely look to take something of an advantage, I would imagine, try and take control of things a little bit. That's why I see Clem really kind of taking off in this game and maybe just getting into a better position for the mid game. We'll start off to the top left-hand side with the red Terran player down a map, looking to fight back. It is Clem.
And in the bottom right-hand side, his last chance to make it to yet another finals. It is Trap.
It's the last chance for everything, guys.
It's the last chance for everyone and everything. It's wonderful. Trap scouting for proxies here, looking for Clem to be cheeky. But Clem is not a broken soul just yet, right? Like he's still confident. That he left early on. He didn't take too much of a mental beating, I would say, that last game.
Yeah. I feel like it's one of those games that's frustrating in the moment to lose, but it's not one you get hung up on, right? Because it's like, man, okay, my build wasn't great against it. I didn't really get to see it well with my Reaper. Yeah, I hate going down a map, everyone does, but there are much more frustrating ways, or kind of games, there are much worse games that have like a longer term effect on you in a series to lose out on. This is the kind of game I think you can get back up from and kind of bounce back from very easily in comparison to some of the other scenarios. So I don't think that stuff. It's not like you got to play your build out. Trap defended perfectly. He made you look silly. He kind of beat you down in a macro game or something. No, it was an opener that really heavily favored Trap and played out like that. So I wouldn't say Clem's going to be too upset about it. And we'll see if he can indeed fight back this game. If he goes down 0-2, that's when I get a little bit worried about what Clem's going to do to try and bring it back then, because that's when I feel like Clem can get a bit reckless, can get a bit careless, and maybe that makes him more dangerous. But if Trap can control that, I feel like that's where Trap really just runs away with the series.
That is a scary prospect. Let's see what happens here. It's gonna be just pretty standard stuff. There's the adept that we were talking about. Could be a possibility on the side of Trap, so he's gonna look to see if he can delay this CC on the low ground. But not much more should come of it. Stargate is gonna be the choice for Trap. So like you were saying last game, it's gonna be really nice for him to kind of keep Clem guessing. I wouldn't have minded a redo of the DTs either. But a Stargate,
you don't expect, right? Like,
yeah,
DTs twice in a row. The Stargate's nice just because I feel like as the starport's proxied on the right side of the map, by the way, I do feel like the Stargate here is one of those things where it's like, okay, you know what? This is a map I can come under pressure on early. Let's not fall behind at all, because the Stargate opener is extremely safe, especially if you go straight into Phoenix. Because this is becoming a bit more of an issue over here, by the way. The CC gets slowed down again. The Adepts are going to deal some damage to the Hellions. Maybe even get another Marine kill here. Good control from Trap. However, this does mean these Adepts are going to be down and not able to help defend back at home when this Hellion drop shows up.
All right, that is a very good point, though. One of the Hellions was taken down, and that is already information as well on the side of Trap. Do you think it's definitely going to be a Hellion drop? Do you ever see... Yeah, it's going to be a medevac, so I guess it has to be at this point. But yeah, Oracle, not Phoenix, so that's somewhat good news, I suppose, for Clem.
Yeah, it depends what the Oracle does as well, right? If the Oracle flies straight across the map, it could be problematic, but it could also give him more of an option. There's Phoenix on the way now. Obviously, if you build like a couple Phoenix right off the bat, what they can do is they typically do stay at home, right? There's no point sending your first Phoenix across the map. And then the Phoenix, all you have to do is lift up one Hellion, and all of a sudden, if there's a battery, 2 Hellions can't do any damage because the battery will just heal everything up. So it is kind of definitely better for Clem to have, you know, full G and Oracle. From Clem's point of view, he's going to lift up one of these Hellions. The Oracle actually came back home, and...
Okay, no skill battery, actually. Yeah. So these 2 Hellions are able to pick off some probes. 7 have gone down. That's pretty good.
And they're stacked up?
Okay. Yeah. Not too bad. I mean, you need 3 Hellions to one-shot probes, so it's a little bit lucky for Clem that there isn't a shield battery there to repel him. Though these two Hellions are probably doomed.
Yeah, but that's fine, right? Because what else are you going to use these Hellions for at this point? They're not really good units for anything else. 7 probes is okay, but you lost everything in the process, and that's the biggest issue I have here. And, you know, for example, this counterattack that Trap sets up for right now, he's got a couple of Phoenix, so they can lift up a Cyclone and take that out of the fight very quickly. If that happens and you get enough Adepts up to fight these Marines, this army of Clem can fall apart very quickly. So let's see how this turns out. If the Oracle gets a bit of energy back, I can see this doing well. I actually don't like that Clem is kind of moving out here. I feel like that's maybe going to make his life more difficult. We'll see what he can do. I feel like Trap's just warping in so many units. He's so well prepared for this, and this counterattack especially, there's no way of dealing with this at all.
Oh god, and even defensively, like you're saying, it's so very difficult to move out, especially with those very expensive units that can get picked off by the Phoenixes in the Cyclone. So let's see if Clem is able to do something, because he has to do something to equalize right now. And Trap actually is gonna recall those Adepts to help in the defense, so he's gonna try to get a comfortable clean out here. He is now shading forward. The Phoenix is looking for those Cyclones, and Clem is gonna have to stand his ground and fight, but it's not a fight that he stands much of a chance of winning.
No, absolutely not. It was a good recall from Trap, because it's very much so a case of, if you just shut this down, you've already dealt a bit of damage, right? Yeah. And then you can come back across the map having cleaned out this army. What is Clem actually building at the moment that's going to be good against what Trap has? Like, Marines with no upgrades, a Cyclone on the way. None of this actually helps against this amount of Adepts. The Phoenix here as support units are just going to be really deadly. The bunker isn't ready. The Phoenix are going to come in and lift up Marines, and that's going to be a disaster. SCVs have to pull in, but this is going to be even more workers killed, and Trap's just going to run away with the worker count this game. He's already ahead by, what, 11 or so? About 9, actually. It's not as bad. I actually thought this was going to be more disastrous from Clem's perspective. He loses 9 SCVs.
It's pretty disastrous. If we look at the production here, Clem he just started Stim. He just swapped on so that he could start Stim. He had 2 barracks without add-ons. He has a starport without add-ons that he's choosing not to produce anything off of, because, you know, that's a good choice at this point. There's a bunch of Phoenixes up in the air. And he's producing a tank that's also a liability against this Phoenix. So Clem really not having much of anything going in his favor, I think.
No, the problem is he's going up to 5 racks now, right? So he's going to turn this into like a 2-base all-in. But look at the setup from Trap. Resonating Glaives? I feel like that's actually like ideal because it means like he's going to stick on just units. And, you know, Phoenix Adept, you can just make a lot of stuff. And it seems obvious a lot of stuff just kind of wins usually. But like a lot of stuff of like very cheap stuff actually works really well against this Marine tank count, especially when the Marines aren't going to have combat shields. It's going to be extremely problematic, I think, for Clem to fight. So it's looking good for Trap in every single way. I do agree. I don't really see what Clem does to make this work. Trap has the 3 bases. His economy's there. I mean, Clem's going to try and hit a timing, but I'm just not feeling it, Cats.
Yeah, I almost hope that he just turtles, actually, because I don't know what timing he's going to find anytime soon, right? I think it all comes down to that first attack that you were talking about as he was moving out. It's just very difficult to move out against Phoenix, and it's an odd choice from my perspective, but it's Clem that's looking to move out again, perhaps, and he's going to be tagged. But yeah, I mean, Trap already added those 6 gateways. He is now finishing his glaives. It's not going to be an easy attack for Clem here, and Trap even counter-attacking. You know, when Trap recalled, I was like, he didn't need to recall. He could have done more damage. But you're perfectly right, Wordy. I mean, that recall was so perfect because it's like I already did a little bit of damage, and now I'm going to crash this army. And from then on, I mean, it's all Trap. I'm not sure what Clem can do. Trap has enough to defend and enough to harass here.
I mean, this little Adept attack is a precursor of what's to come, right? You can just see how the Glaives are shredding tank, Marines, SCVs.
Yeah.
And Clem's even going to back away. I think he's realizing, like, you're on, like, Adept with Glaives. And he's like, well, actually, I'm better off waiting a little bit. I don't think you can wait forever. I don't think this is a scenario where you can build a 3rd CC and macro out of it, because that gives Trap too long. But I feel like if you wait for a few more units, go back home, collect a couple extra things, this is your best bet, because Phoenix Adept is not high tech. So in theory, the more you get up as Clem, the better this should end up going for you in comparison to the Proto Sign. But Trap's just doing a good job attacking up as well, honestly. Like, Temple Archives is already going to be done, so he's going to have access to Archons. Charge is going to be done. Like, I'm talking about the Phoenix Adept composition, but the Trap's already left that in the dust. He's ready for the next stage of this. And yeah, that's not something I was really thought I'd be ending up talking about in this game, because I thought Clem was going to attack. I thought Trap was going to, focus on defending it, but yeah, Trap's going to defend it with the next step army already. 4th base on the way. I feel like that's a little bit overkill, but nothing you can't cancel, as he sees that this is still a 2-base all-in with that amount of units, I would imagine.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind an SCV pull at this point either, because, just put all of the eggs on one basket. What else are you going to do? And Trap made so very many sentries even, so I am too surprised that he had the presence of mind and the resources mined, honestly, right? Like, he took that 3rd very early, and he has access now to that Templar tech. The Archons are already out. Now, this is not by any means a measly force by Clem, and that's enough Marines that the Phoenix could be rendered obsolete, but now he's gonna get caught up, not siege, and with the rest of the army of Trap collapsing onto him, it looks like it's gonna be a little bit too much.
Yeah, that was just the perfect fight from Trap. He came in from the left-hand side, so he gets on the tanks right away. He avoids the Liberators. They did absolutely nothing. And then the Adepts actually shade through, so they're fighting Marines, so they're dealing the right amount of damage in the right place. And Trap just takes a quick 2-0 lead, Cats. And this series is getting a little bit out of hand, so I'm going to have to take a moment to pull it back together.
And we are back with DreamHack Last Chance. And after that game, I was like, I said crap instead of trap. Do you hear that, Wardy? Wardy was like, yeah, I heard it. I was laughing. That was what I was laughing about. I was like, well, I hope no one else heard it.
And then we saw the chat.
Oh, man.
I think a couple people heard it, Cats. Just a couple people out there.
Yeah, but I mean, Clem and Trap, you know, you start saying Clem, you were giving me the out here. You were saying, yeah, you start saying Clem, then, you know, there's Trap, Clem and Trap. They shouldn't arc, that's for sure.
I'm on your side, because that's the sort of thing I say by mistake all the time, so I'm with you, buddy. 100% behind you. You want to intro our play in the top left, Cats? I feel like you've got his name on lockdown.
All right. And at the top left-hand side, the blue Protoss player, it is Trap. Nailed it.
On the right-hand side, a red Terror on the brink of defeat. Can he bring it back? It's Clem.
Clement de Planche. Clement de Planche.
It's a fun name, isn't it?
Indeed.
I've never tried to say it though. I feel like for me, it's one of those names best left unsaid before I make a fool of myself.
Yeah, I tried with him listening to it so that he could correct me. I was pretty close. I think it's something like Clement de Planche. Something close to that. Not exactly, but close. And he is proxying a barracks, but it's not a very dangerous barracks, right? It's a barracks that's meant to not be scouted. It's on the wrong side of the rocks, you could argue, even if you wanted to be very aggressive off of it. So it's just meant to, I think, more than anything else, keep Trap guessing.
Yeah. Well, there's a factory, so never mind. I was 100% with you, like 100% of the way, and then he built the factory, and now, do you think
talking mines?
Maybe. I actually really don't know what you do for the best here, because the factory, I mean, like, it's not overly, like you say, it's not overly committed, right? Like, you can fly it back, and then you build a reactor out there as well. Trap is doing the right thing. He accepts that there's nothing in the main base. And obviously, the longer he sees nothing, the weirder this is, right? Because now when you realize that there's still no factory on the way, it's like, what's going on?
Starport, I'm getting.
Yeah,
this has got to be mine drop, right? Not, or it looks like it might be Hellions then. I mean, the SCV is retreating, so...
Maybe the rat's gonna fly home, you build Hellions. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, he's gonna go Hellions. But the thing is, I feel like Trap was just safe enough on his setup. He actually does cancel the battery, by the way. I think Trap doesn't quite believe there's a proxy out there, or like it's like a far out proxy. He's bringing units across though, and there's nothing in this base apart from one Marine. So, I actually don't know. Like, it's a bit risky from Trap, and maybe Hellions could just run by and do some serious damage, but he can put some pressure on at the front at least, force an SCV, but he sees no command center still, so he backs away. I don't know, Cats, this one's a bit wild.
It really is, yeah. His best window was before the starport finished building. Perhaps he could have stalled and killed that SCV, but not much is going to come out of that maneuver, and it's going to be Clem with the Hellion drop once again, a little bit different this time around, proxying the Hellions, but not really gaining too much space from that proxy, rather than just keeping Trap guessing, really, right? Like, Trap doesn't know that there's Hellions out. He will see the medevac, however.
I like Trap's setup. He just sent probes to the low ground. He could wall with Stalkers, and he puts them in position at the last moment. That's a good wall. 3 probes go down, but I think that's fine, because remember, you know, Clem's CC is extremely delayed. It just now started as he goes Armory. So the fact that it only just now started really means he's meant to deal some damage here. Like, okay, Trap's not exactly producing probes off both his Nexus just yet. In fact, he's warping in aggressively. Okay, this could get exciting. With the Widow Mines hitting the main, there's a couple Stalkers still here. We'll see how well Trap responds, as he's going to put some pressure on the other side as well. Observer is on the way if he can just split these probes, which he does. Hellions show up on the natural, but there's not a lot to kill on the natural, as the Stalkers will get rid of 1 Hellion. And 2. Oh, nice
good micro.
Yeah, really good micro. I mean, that's kind of expected from Clem, I guess, but Stalkers show up on this other side, and there's only Marines here, which can be microed against with the Stalkers, right? So this is kind of a real opportunity for Trap to get serious damage.
Yeah, I think Clem is going to have to pull SCVs and try to get us around before those stalkers can evacuate. They're going to be difficult. Tries to block with one SCV, but it's not going to be quite enough. Now this tank is the next barrier on the side of Clem. I mean, he did a little bit of damage, but Trap already killing 7 SCVs of his own. And that bunker really not helping Clem, actually, right? Like, he could have actually flanked with SCVs from that side and prevented the retreat of those stalkers had that bunker not been made.
Yeah, no, I actually, this is fine for Trap, right? He gets the SCVs to make up for the damage he took. Remember that Trap's the one that's actually traded out no units, basically, in comparison, right? You compare 1 Zerg and 1 Stalker to 4 Hellions, a Medevac, and 2 Mines. So yeah, Trap's lost a few more pros, but off a faster Nexus and having traded out less units overall, I think overall this is great for Trap. He's up those 8 workers, which isn't too wild considering Clem is still needing to morph this into an orbital on the natural. Actually, the more I look at this, the more I like it for Trap.
Yeah, I think it's a very good position. For anyone wondering why, I'm actually wondering too, maybe this was a game where you would have morphed the CC on the high ground, right? Just to have it gain a little bit more energy. It's a tiny decision, but I'm always curious about stuff like this.
It's like, tough, right? Because he would have, how many SCVs is he running with? 3, 4?
Just 3. That's the thing. And
like
he had
maybe
2.
Morph high ground.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the actual cutoff is of it being worthwhile more from high ground versus the extra SCVs mining 100% effectively.
Yeah, there's also the comfort of just getting it done with and, you know, transferring your SCVs earlier if you don't want to expend the, you know, the resources in terms of attention later. Now Clem is going to be looking for a little bit of a move out. This is a powerful move out. Yeah, 3 tanks.
I feel like Trap actually went a bit overboard on observers. He built triple observer, which usually is nice for vision and information, right? But in reality, in this scenario, he would have been much better off just building 1 immortal a little bit sooner. And this is awkward as well, because he doesn't know which way around Clem is coming from, so he doesn't even get the Stalkers in a good place to slow this down and deal initial damage. So that's a real shame. His first immortal is going to pop out in a moment. He's got High Templar to morph in for an Archon, but that just kind of shows you how much he's been spending on tech instead of just getting an army ready. Immortal is kind of boxed in as well. Where's this Immortal off to? Cats? I don't really know. Backing away now, staying alive as the first battery will finish. That's pretty much the only battery you've got to work with here is Clem. He's already pushing into a better position. Vikings on the ground. Liberator sieged up. The good news from Trap is he's going to have charge. These cells can be a little bit better than usual. We'll see if he can find a way to clean this out. This is a scary push from Clem. Trap has a little while before he needs to go, right? Because he doesn't necessarily have to go before, you know, reinforcements get here. There's still reinforcements coming across the map, so you can afford to wait a little while. Imagine you want to go with like a battery in play, but the battery is going to be so far back. I'm not sure that's really going to be enough.
Oh, yeah, and Clem is kind of cornered here as well. So now here comes the flank from Trap with those charge slots. Clem doing his best to target fire, and the Immortal is trying to be taken down, and it will as the super battery comes into play. But it's you know, it's going to be a little bit too rough for Clem to find any more damage from here on out. Trap will clean this out somewhat comfortably, and I can't help but to think that was a little bit too slow of a push from Clem, right? He was sieging the Templar Archives, and yeah, that's an important structure, but in the scope of all things, I feel like he caught Trap somewhat with his pants down with that push, and maybe he could have, you know, sieged to force the army to fight a little bit faster and not give Trap as much time to kind of work on that flank and, you know, get his charge and get his Archons and everything that he needed in place.
That's definitely the thing, right? It feels as though Trap had an eternity to come around and pick the flank, and okay, yeah, he lost a gate and the Temple Archives, and in the end he lost a few units as well, but it felt like it should have done so much more with how much Clem arrived with versus how much Trap had ready to go. And now Clem starts his 3rd CC at the same time as the 3rd Nexus gets going, so I mean, that is good news for Clem as well. But if he moves out and this Prism shows up, which is about to happen, he's in trouble all over again. If Trap can warp in a few extra Zealots alongside these ones, he doesn't have a lot of minerals in the bank, but I mean, Clem's in the middle of the map right now. Yeah. Trap is going to start getting some serious damage done here. CVs have to pull away, and okay, Trap doesn't even need to warp in more Zealots. He needs to just focus on going across the map and defending with Clem on the push right now.
Yes, indeed. Storm is almost finished as well for Trap, but Clem has found himself close to the 3rd base of Trap, and this is a really nice position. Might be able to get a cancel, and that's exactly what he needs. And yeah, I feel like Trap could have actually warped in a few more Zealots, right, offensively. And that might have done some work for him. Clem with a very nice scan will identify that there is Templars out. So maybe now would be wise to retreat.
It's weird, right? Because actually Clem had to cancel his 3rd CC as well. He's now going to build that in the main. So both players basically reset the third base. And typically, I'd say that's good for a Terran player if you're still building your third at the same time as a Protoss. And you see one High Templar going to join into this prison.
Cute.
So, yeah, exactly, right? It's kind of a little bit of fun. Because now a single Storm can really bring SCVs down low, or even just weaken up a little bit of bio for the Zealots to really work their way through even better to whatever it is responding in that base. So, I kind of like it. I'm a little bit worried for Clem now simply for the fact that getting aggressive and pushing forward is more difficult now the Templar actually have energy and Storm ready. 7 probes just went down, though, because that's going to be an array of Widow Mines in the main and natural that get some good damage done. And that's actually big, really hurting Trap, who's going to get aggressive at the same time. And he hasn't even cleaned out those Widow Mines yet, so they are going to be an issue. An 8th probe goes down, and there's still a mine in the natural that's yet to be handled.
Yeah, Trap evacuating, very good timing from him, but not evacuating all of it. So this mine is gonna go off one more time, I believe, and it could get as many as... How many was that? Like 3 or 4? Oh, the Storms are much bigger story here, though, as Trap moves on forward. Very nice Storms, but Clem retreating onto a strong choke himself. At the same time, there is Warpins going in the main, and Clem actually moving in and picking up some of the very important units in the Immortal and the Templars now, as he continues to chase for the sentries. Very decisive, chaotic moments here.
Yeah, this army is just not good enough for Trap to really do anything, right? That's the issue. Like, a couple Storms are great, but there's just no follow-up to it. He needs a lot of damage while moving forward, and a little Storm Drop does well. The Zealots in the main are the only good thing that's really happening right now from Clem. From Trap, sorry, everything else got pushed back, and Clem's on a push to come and end this game, I think, Cats. I think we're going to actually get off of the potential 3-0 train we were on, as Clem is fighting back, and he's fighting back well. This was a weird game, though, with a lot of interesting moments. I think the problem for Trap was that he was doing a lot of things right, but I think the Storm was not the right call, because you imagine he never went Temple Archives in the first place, and he just has more straight-up units to help him with that tank push. I think that is just handled more easily, and I think then you have more counterattack potential as well. The Storm is just such a flimsy way to play into the mid-game with, and with it being such a scrappy game and only ever having like 2 or 3 Storms available, it's just not enough against a Terran that's not sitting in every single Storm possible.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. If he wasn't so heavy on tech, he would have had more units to counterattack. At that point, Clem was way out on the map, and it would have been game 1 all over again, right? Like just completely out of position to deal with the Celot Warpins in this case, and I think that might have been much better, but as it's... Oh, that's huge. But as it stands, I mean, Trap just not having enough units and choosing to use whatever Warpins he has available defensively instead, so his first attack didn't go nearly as well as it did on the first map, and this time around it's Clem in a very, very strong position as he moves on forward and confidently to try to whittle down this army. The super battery will save the day for the time being, but all the medevacs survive, a lot of marauders still survive, and Clem with a comfortable supply lead.
Yep, very comfortable for Clem. I mean, realistically, it's just a choice of where he wants to go to try and end the game. He's got reinforcements stacking up at home. Kills the Templar Archives, just going to fly on out of there, and Trap will maybe survive a little while longer, but... Yeah,
in the same location, by the way. Did he build it in the same location again? Where is the Templar Archives? Wait, the third time? The third time?
I think, no. Okay. This time I think it went elsewhere, but yeah, it was the same place initially.
Yeah. I love that the third time it's tucked in, you know?
I've got the blueprints for my base, and the Templar Archives goes here. It's like, the guy's like, well, I don't know, man, like, maybe that's going to die there. And he's like, no. The build saves, place your Templar Archives right here. I'm going to build it right here.
Yeah, and then it's shown to be the improper location twice in a row. So now he is being a little bit more cautious as the game progresses. There is ghosts on the way. Relentless is Clem with his Widow Mine drops. They have been working wonders for him. So why not? This last Widow Mine very close to shooting a clump of probes, but instead will kill a sentry. And Clem again with a very comfortable supply lead and a very, very large army lead, nearly double.
Yeah, I think the Widow Mines have been a big deal as well, that we obviously kind of, I don't want to say we glossed over it, but they've been doing a lot, because not only were they killing workers, but they were also forcing units to, forcing probes to pull away so frequently. And that's probably one of the reasons Trap fell so far behind when it came to the army on the map. Like, if you actually look at the income graph, you can see the moments where Trap's just had to pull workers away. Like, time and time again, Clem's just been able to take huge eco leads for, short periods of time, but those short bursts really add up. I imagine that's part of the reason like Clem's had such a strong eco in comparison here. I know there's been moments where Trap's done the same thing with Zealots across the map, but every time Trap's done it, Clem's already been doing it, right? And then there's been more moments where Clem's done it as well. As for a moment, I thought he was going to snipe that Prism down, but he backed away. Clem just looking to get into a position to force the fight, wants to move up through this top side. And he's got the Ghost EMP, so definitely has some opportunity. Good first EMP, hits the Sentries and an Immortal. Those are prime targets. Defense at home is already looking good, so Clem can continue to focus on attacking. As he pushes on through here, going to drop one more EMP, though. The Sentry's getting hit there.
But he's out of EMP. And these Templars in the War Prism are the real story here for Trap. They are the anchor to his army, and now Clem out of EMPs is going to struggle somewhat, and a huge storm lands in the middle of all of the bio. Now it's softened up enough that Trap might choose to take an engagement. No, instead he's going to back away and give an Archon up for his troubles, and Clem is going to hide away. I mean, it's not a very mobile Protoss army, not very heavy on charge slots either, so kind of difficult to chase here.
Yeah, there's so many medevacs on the Storm. It feels like, yeah, it's a great first Storm, but the medevac, they just instantly came into healing, right? And they just started to do some serious work. As Clem is going to lose one Widowmine, the other one stays alive. The scan does not find the Observer. He scans up the ramp, though, and gets to see what's up. The Storm does a little bit, but Clem has already kind of passed it as Liberators are going to siege up. One more Storm kind of hits the Ghost, which is not really great because it doesn't get rid of them, right, with that single Storm. And so that's not really adding too much to this, as you're going to see Clem, I think, at this point, is just going to run up and maybe commit through. He has more EMPs available. There's a couple High Templar coming forward. He has to be careful with them, and he does drop one more defensive Storm. It still feels like Clem can just push on through this. That's the last Storm available for the moment, Cats.
Yes, indeed. The medevacs are all still alive. This is a very small bio force from Clem. I'm surprised we're not seeing a stream of red on the map right now. I mean, this game feels very much in his favor, but he's working with such a little army here, just trying to get value. Possibly while he, you know, establishes things back at home, he's going to continue to expand, I'm sure. Picks up an Immortal in spite of the super battery. And yeah, I mean, this is Clem just closing things up, I think, slowly, as Trap is really running out of options.
Yeah, there's really nothing left here for Trap, right? I mean, what else can I do? A couple more force fields go down. EMPs are still good across the board. GG is called, and Clem is gonna take a map, Cats. We're not gonna have another 3-0. We are gonna have a bit of back and forth in this series.
And that is good to see. I did not want 6 games total. That would have been awful. And the start of this game, it was looking pretty good for Trap. Honestly, when that War Prism goes into Clem's main, I got that feeling in my stomach that we were not going to be here for long. So I'm really happy that Clem turned it around, and we got some more games in our hands.
Yeah, that Marine tank push was terrifying from Clem, and I do kind of go back to just Trap's decision on how greedy he was playing. It just felt like, I don't disagree, he could have kind of gotten away with a lot of it if Clem hadn't been aggressive, right? But you have 3 observers, right? That's something we talked about initially, right? That, you know, you build 3 observers, you should have info. And I feel like with 3 observers, you need to pick up on the fact that Clem's being this aggressive much sooner. And you need to cut something. Like, you're not meant to go to charge and start, you know, and Temple Archives off of a delayed Twilight Forge. You know, this was a robo first. So to do all of that with 3 observers in play was just very greedy from Trap. And obviously Clem with the Marine tank push was very good from that point on to close it out. So yeah, it was still a close game though, and definitely still scary territory for Clem here as we go into Romanticide for map 4. Of course, a must-win game still from Clem to force us into a game 5. We'll see if he can do it. We'll see what Romanticide brings us.
Yes, indeed. It's going to be an exciting match, no doubt. And yeah, I mean, those Stalkers could have also been out on the map a little bit sooner, but that is also to Clem's credit, right? Like, he was harassing with those Helios, with those Widow Mines, and that's what really kept Trap back at home with the Observers and the Stalkers. If he had been a little bit quicker to get back out on the map, he could have maybe caught a few more Marines. Instead, when he found the army of Clem, it was mostly tanks facing Stalkers in a line, right? It's just not efficient trade. So he never got to slow down the push of Clem. And yeah, that from then on, I think Clem traded favorably, but it was more of an evening the game than anything else. I don't feel like he got as big an advantage as he could have with the push either, right? It was the Widow Mines later, I think, that really.
Widow Mines are maybe keeping the 3rd base away, right? Because how often do we see the Protoss just expanding like a minute, 2 minutes before the Terran player does? And that's just how you're meant to do it to trade well enough to stay in the game as a Protoss when you're not playing the splash damage already. Like, yeah, if you're even on bases and you're going Colossus, then great, because the Colossi just trade way better. But in this case, you're just on single target damage units. You don't have the AoE. Yeah, okay, he had an Archon. He was going towards Storm, but by the time those things really came into play, it was too far gone. Clem already had so much stuff in place, so yeah. No, a very interesting game to dissect. Like a lot of little things early that really could have changed the pacing of it and really kind of threw kind of our beliefs out the window, maybe.
Yep.
Going to game number 4 on Ramanta's side. We're going to start it off and down in the bottom right-hand side with our Red Terran player from Team Liquid bringing it back and giving us a 4th game for the first time today.
Hell
it is
yeah.
Clem.
And in the top left-hand side, it is the blue Protoss player, Trap. Stalkers even that game was hectic. Like there, like you were saying, there were so many little points where everything could have fallen apart, and it's gotta feel good for Clem, right? Because you have so many of those moments, like even the bunker where he built it. It's like one of those moments that's frustrating as a player, where it's like, oh, I wish I didn't do this. I wish I didn't do this, and he stabilized and he pushed through it, and that's kind of like the kind of game that will give you momentum, that will make you feel like, in spite of everything that was going against you, maybe you're still, the better player. Maybe you can still bring it back.
Yeah. I feel like that's, obviously it's a game that Clem needs, right? But you're right. I feel like it's the kind of game Clem needed as well. It wasn't like super straightforward, but it was a game which he controlled early and kind of, he made Trap kind of move around. He made Trap kind of play to his game. I feel like that's the sort of thing that actually makes Clem look at this and go, okay, cool. I can put him under pressure. I can take control for myself. And yeah, I feel like that gives you a lot more confidence going into this next game now, another must-win scenario, than if you just come in and you're like, oh, I killed like 25 probes with Widow Mines and he didn't have anything, So
exactly, yeah.
It's almost like, Clem maybe won it early, but the way it played out maybe even helps him a little bit more mentally. It just feels good to be winning for a while,
Yeah, most definitely. And it feels good to win in a way where you're stabilizing, where things are not necessarily going in your favor all the time, but you're making the best of it and kind of just getting to play the game at every instance, right? Strategically and just mechanically, and just really be deep in there doing everything that you can. And that game was awesome. I think that this game is going to be awesome as well, as the first Reaper is going to walk in to find an Adept pushing across the map instead.
Yep. Sorry, excuse me for a moment. The bunker just starting up, so Clem just making sure he's safe against anything coming across the map, particularly when Reaper's out on the other side. Just wants to make sure you can keep hold of the natural nice and easily. The probe actually really dove in there and ends up going down. The Adept will arrive with the bunker not quite complete, but with 2 Marines, I don't think this is really worthwhile. The Reaper can actually start to hunt the Adept as well, so if you get good enough damage on it, the Reaper can play a dance and maybe try and fight the Adept there. Kind of a bit too far onto it, but yeah.
Yeah, probably needed a mine to start off that fight and then put on some damage onto the Adept. Instead, it's going to be 2 Adepts poking, and I'm a little bit concerned about the positioning of the bunker. I would like to see it 1 hex further back just to cover the mineral line from behind, because this is exactly what I was fearing, right? Like, this bunker doesn't actually have coverage of its mineral line, whereas if it was closer to the CC, you're still covering the same choke, still covering your ramp, and covering the mineral line. As it stands, Trap with a very annoying position, and 5 or so SCVs not mining right now, and a mule.
Yeah, but then the probes are running away from the Reaper, so those probes are gone, man. Like, they're absolutely out of there as the Adepts chase quite hard for a Marine. They could have had an SCV, but they don't go for it. Probes do get back to mine, but only just now. So that's like 10, 15 seconds lost by 1 Reaper running in. So both players having issues with their economy early. As Trap just going to open straight up in toward that Blink play. It's actually kind of weird to go 4 games deep in a PvT, and this is the first time we're talking about Blink. And with the first time we're talking about Blink, this is going to be 4 gates of Blink as well. So
wow.
It's a common map to do this on because there's just so much space to cover in the main. It's very difficult just to provide an all-out defense. Like, I'd say this is the best case scenario for Blink because it's almost guaranteed you're going to do some damage / pull the Terran player around quite a lot because they just can't cover the Blink into the main with 1 single siege tank. So there's definitely good opportunity here for Trap to get some damage done with this.
Most definitely. There's also those mineral lines, so you can kind of siege a potential 3rd later with that Blink and just kind of maneuver around. There's a lot of maneuverability here. I can't help but to feel that Reaper obviously did a little bit too much on the side of Clem, because not only did it do everything that you mentioned, it also forced the Adepts back where the Adepts didn't need to go back. There was only 2 Marines and 1 was red, right? There was 2 more Marines about to pop up, and then maybe you consider going back. Both Adepts were in the yellow health, but I mean, they could have stuck around a little bit longer too. I think it was just Trap dealing with the Reaper that made him think, okay, I should just shade out.
Yep. Yeah, no, there's definitely more potential, right? But like you say, you've got to kind of look on both sides of the map, and that can be tough sometimes. As Trap really just kind of gave up on this. Am I crazy? Cancel the gateway? He is definitely building 3 gates, right?
Oh my God! He's building 2 forges and Colossus. This is he's done kind of a
hard
turnaround. Yeah, hard switch. I love it, right? Because Clem has to be anticipating aggression here at this point.
Yeah, I mean, with what Clem's got, I'm just gonna go back on Clem's vision a second. Yeah, Clem saw, I think, an extra. No, I really don't know. I feel like there was definitely 3 gates building up, but maybe I'm just crazy. I was sure he was going 4 gate blink, and he's cancelled it up, and now he's gone hard switch into Colossus and double upgrades, and just trying to catch Clem off guard and trying to keep the pacing of this game kind of moving along, keeping it different as we go step by step here.
Yeah, I really like it. The tanks are going to do well against Colossi, but Clem really needs to figure out what's going on. This is his first starport, I believe, so it's not particularly early. And obviously, Vikings are going to be the ideal response to the Colossus tech. So we'll see what Trap is able to do this, as Clem's scout is going to get denied in the middle of the map. And how do you like this economically? Clem seems to be doing well, right? Like he situated his third pretty quickly here.
Yeah, I mean, he opened 3cc, right? So it definitely felt like Clem was just on the right track. And I do feel like with the way Trap was initially setting up, he wasn't on the fastest third around. His third did not start right, just before the 4-minute mark or anything. So it definitely feels good for Clem. Obviously, he's very passive at the moment, though. And I do feel like for being passive, that's the one issue. I feel like a lot of the time, be like, oh yeah, I kind of like this. But because Trap is going double upgrades, that's the sort of thing you generally try and get into position against. You try and drop against. You try and deal damage against. Now, Trap's just getting away with it. And, this is going to be a clean switch into that Templar Archives. Nothing really hold him back. He's already going to be on 3 Colossi before there's a single fight that breaks out. It just do wonder. I mean, Clem's setting up a second bunker at the front. I mean, he's in it for the long haul, but Trap's not looking to push and fight. Like, maybe he moves onto the map, but he's taking a 4th base, right? He's going to be, if he moves across, he's not going to commit because he's going to see double bunker. But that's fine because it wasn't his intention to fully commit to a 3-base attack or anything. So, yeah, Clem's being extremely safe, and I'm just kind of worried what that means for him. He starts a 4th CC, so it's not like he's, playing it slow. He is playing for the macro. But just sometimes that doesn't work out well against Troyos players, especially if Trap identifies it, right? And then Trap just says, what if I just go into Stargates, Fleet Peak, and start building carriers already? Because that's going to really be difficult for Clem to deal with.
Yeah, most definitely. At least both players start their 4th at around the same time. Trap has had a great vision of what Clem is doing with that observer at the front. He's had and kept tabs on the army of Clem the entire time. And Clem has been guessing. I mean, he even scanned the 3rd, which is not a thing that you see too often. I'm not sure if he was checking for the 3rd, maybe still anticipating something like an all-in, or just looking for the gases or potentially the army, perhaps more likely. But not really gathering too much information with that. His scouts were denied on the map a couple of times. So it's good to see that regardless, he starts the 4th and he's gearing up for a longer game. Now this small army is going to scout the army of Trap and give him a little bit more information of what he's working against. No doubt we will have to see some Vikings started soon.
He lost the target fire on one of the medevacs, which is a shame because that should have been a dead medevac there, which would have been a nice pickoff. But especially when you want to start building Vikings, if all of a sudden you're down a medevac, it's like, oh, well, that's the last thing I want to be rebuilding. Trap is just very ready to go late game. Disruptors, Dark Shrine, 2 upgrades on the way. There's no observer, but yeah, he's really just on the way to a very, very strong later stage game. Yes, Clem is the one that's maxed out, taking a 4th base, but he's also playing like a tank-based army still, which is not extremely mobile, so it's not the sort of army that can just run across the map. I don't know if I want to see Trap doing more than this.
Stim.
Yeah, that was a huge stim. Wow.
Huge stim from Clem, yeah. And a big warping on the side of Trap, as Clem is going to be forced to deal with it. There's a few units in position. The SCV is trying to make some chokes, as Trap tries to prevent this planetary fortress from morphing, but all of the army of Clem is there, so that's not going to happen anytime soon. And actually a recall of those Zealots. I'm not sure that was necessary.
Yeah, I feel like actually I thought the idea of running them to the corner was to give them an open space, so if units chased, they could fight and trade well. Instead, just kind of, as you say, recalls out of there. The army on the right side is just left, by the way, as Clem moves out without any of his tanks. So this is the fight that Trap would like to take. The tanks are just not here. Force fields. Oh, wow. I mean, that's massive. Yes, you lift up and you get away as Clem, but it's a lot of free buy units you just give up for no real reason other than being out-positioned. And you know what Clem's really stalled on? It's the upgrades, right? Now we got 2-2 against 1-1 on the way to 3-3 for Trap.
Jeez.
And Clem has not even got the money to start 2-2. You can start +2 attack now. It's going to be a little bit longer before you can even start +2 armor.
Yeah, the good thing for Clem is, I guess, he has a lot of tech labs, so that's going to help against the Colossus in building Marauders to try to respond, but he doesn't have any air. He doesn't have any Vikings. And Trap is posturing here. The tanks are going to be essential as well to keep some of these positions well protected and well defended from Clem. He has a lot of ghosts, but those become liabilities against the disruptor shots as they are very slow to split. However, regardless, Clem is one of the best at splitting and at predicting where those disruptors might end up going, and the tanks are going to provide a strong enough anchor that he's not gonna falter, not yet at least.
Huge army through the middle of the map, and that's the one thing I would say is that Clem feels like he's always been maxed out, whereas Trap's been around like 160, 170 a lot, and well, straight up right now, Trap just does not have a way to fight this army that ran across the map. So Clem, the ability to defend, and also going across the other side. Wow.
That's a lot of corpses, man.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff that just died. And now he's going to get rid of every medevac, so there's no getting away with this. He will snipe one, disrupt to the other, just surviving. Okay, that was a massacre on the side of Clem. He lost a lot. Now I'm worried that this is very tank heavy. Not currently sieged up. Ooh, that was scary, right? Because if you get a charge onto those tanks when they're not sieged, this army of Clem disappears.
Yeah, I feel like Trap could have just gone for it right there and then, but maybe respecting the, the unknown behind that army, maybe there's enough bio that if he goes forward without enough zealots, he can falter, but I feel like he could have capitalized. I mean, those tanks were unsieged, and I am so worried for Clem out here on the map right now. I mean, he's trying to continue to establish those bases, but like you said, it's the upgrades that are gonna come into play soon, as Trap is now hitting 3-3 with this confidently pushing out onto the middle of the map and crushing Clem's army, and Clem doesn't really have much to fall back on here, Wardy. It's looking grim.
Yeah, I mean, this was just brutal coming in. The tanks go down really quickly and in sync, so they get dealt with well, and now you saw a lot of these ghosts dying as well, and that's where Trap really takes advantage. Continuing through, the upgrade difference was just monumental for these fights as well, and honestly still is. It's still a whole set of upgrades in the lead, and it's only getting worse for Clem. His +2 armor is still not done. Trap's going to move up. There's no tanks anymore. The tanks going down was the big issue, because the tanks were the one thing that stopped Trap from making a lot of these previous fights happen. Disruptors are hitting everywhere, cats, and SCVs are starting to pull into Colossus. That's not going to be pretty. Zealots are warping in to help. Disruptor shots still firing, and Trap continues to push on through this. He has too much, and Clem